Well, here we are again today. Welcome, listeners and viewers. Welcome to Compliance in Motion. You know it, the podcast where we dive deep into stories, strategies, and systems that power real workplace safety. I'm your host, Tony DeAscentis, and whether you're on the floor, in the field, or leading from the front office, this show is going to bring you some practical tips, insights, and stories that you can relate to and perhaps internalize and make your own in your organization. Today, joining me is Steve Huson, Safety Coordinator of Mill Plain Electric, an electric contracting company known for its strong safety culture and hands-on approach. I'll tell you what, when you get a company like this that's doing hands-on approach to training and leadership, good things are bound to happen, and Steve is here to tell us his story. Welcome, Steve, to the Compliance in Motion podcast. So let's just go ahead and jump right into this. And I usually like to start out by giving our listeners an opportunity to hear your background and your story and a little bit about your current role. So if you could walk us through it, what inspired you to take on the role as a safety manager at Mill Plain Electric?
I don't know that it was inspired as much as requested. So we were running a big
Yeah.
job, and as the job wrapped up, the superintendent came and approached me and asked me if I would step into the role of safety. And I was kind of a little confused. I'm like, I thought I did really well. Thought we made a lot of money on this job. He goes, well, yeah, but you fly helicopters for the military and you know regulations, so this is a
Yeah.
good fit. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, because if you're flying helicopters, you need to understand safety, that is for sure, and
Absolutely.
compliance and step by step. So real quick, divergence. Tell us a little bit about that. I can't skip over it. So you are currently in reserves or
I retired out in 22 after
okay.
22 years of service.
Wow. And where were you flying helicopters?
All over this great country and world.
Yeah.
I was in the National Guard here in Oregon, and we did a lot of rescues off of Mount Hood and Mount Broken Top, and did firefighting. And I was a medevac maintenance test pilot. So,
Wow, I'll tell you what, hats off to that, and thank you for your service because that is a big deal. And getting to cross paths with individuals like yourself, who have had these kinds of experiences in their life, I find to be absolutely fascinating. And hopefully, maybe someday we'll have you back as a podcast and talk specifically about your expertise and experiences in that area. But back to today, safety and compliance. So how has your perspective on safety evolved since stepping into your role in the position at Mill Plain?
I would say that it went originally from just making sure, trying to check all the boxes and be compliant, to more of a common sense kind of out of the box approach, and just trying to come alongside the field, because that's who I am. I'm an electrician by trade for the last 25 years, and just
Mhm.
kind of stepped into the safety role. Like, okay, wait, what are the problems that I dealt with that didn't have a good solution, but we still needed to get it done?
It's interesting because so many people out there listening to the podcast today are in a similar position in that they were doing their job extremely well, delivering to expectation and beyond expectation of their employer. And all of a sudden, somebody says, hey, we'd like you to also be in charge of safety. And they add that to your plate. And one of the things that I just found interesting that you said is you kind of did this transition from a check the box mentality to a common sense, what needs to be done mentality. And what do you think was that trigger for you that really kind of like moved you from a check the box to a common sense? Was the check the box kind of driven by the mentality of, yep, we have to do this. It's a regulation. Company expects us to do it. Check the box, move on. But then as you became in the leadership role of safety, you kind of took a slightly different perspective and broadened it because obviously we still have to check the boxes. Is that the transition from worker to leader in safety?
I would say that's a a really large part of it. That and just the fact that not everything that we do fits neatly in that little box. So sometimes we got to kind of think outside of the box and still keep our people safe. And I try to explain to everybody that, yeah, here's the box. Sometimes our job doesn't fit in the box, but if you and I can sit down and have a conversation and write out our plan of attack, then we might not even be fully in that box. We might only have a toe in that box. But my goal is to keep you safe and send you home today in the same condition you showed up.
Right, absolutely. So maybe so we can hold on to the concept of toe in the box and thinking outside the box. Do you have a specific example of maybe where you would, kind of embody the scenario or the analogy that you just gave us?
The thing that's coming to mind right off the top of my head is the fact that you're not supposed to put a ladder in a scissor lift, right? Like that's a big no-no.
Mm.
But there are times where we get into a job and something changes and there's structure in the way, and I cannot, nor can our team physically access the area they need to be in. So OSHA says no ladders in a forklift or a scissor lift. And it's like, well, we can't get there. We have obstructions in our way. So what if we write out a plan? We actually secure this ladder to the lift and we put on a harness and I strap you to a 5,000 pound rated anchor point. Um, we're not in the box really, but we're kind of like, you're going to go home today
Yep.
safe. If
Yep.
something happens and you fall, we've got you.
My takeaway on that is really about like what you did was you combined multiple safety protocols, if you would, to create one cohesive approach that was going to be safe and compliant for that situation. And so often we're all find ourselves in these situations where the exact step-by-step approach needs to be modified. The process needs to be modified somehow, but you need to be able to do it in a way that you keep people out of harm's way and that you follow maybe multiple safety protocols to get the same exact job done and take the best parts of each. So I see what you're saying there. So it sounds like you support a safety culture of really like assess the situation, follow it to the T, step by step, but when necessary, team up with somebody else, do the brainstorming, think outside that box, and come up with a solution to the situation. Is that the kind of safety culture that you would say that you kind of support and build and sustain at Mill Plain?
Absolutely. We do, as electricians, we do a pretty hazardous job. And there's pipes and lights and there's stuff all over the place in really precarious positions that aren't easily accessed. They're accessible, right? So, we had a job where we were running some conduit across the Lewis and Clark Bridge. It's a 350-foot fall to the water. Um, and compliance says you have to do this, and this, and you can't have anything over the vest. And it's like, well, but I've got a water hazard down there. So, like, we kind of have to write something different into the policy and the way we're going to do. And the way I look at it is if I can stand before a jury and explain why we made the choices we made and feel confident and comfortable, then yeah, we're going to move forward with that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a good self checkpoint, right? Is to evaluate your plan as if third party was looking at it and saying,
Yeah.
trying to shoot holes in it as much as you can. And if you've evaluated your own plan and you feel like you've plugged every hole and dotted every I and crossed every T, then you're going to be confident that you're doing the right thing and nobody's going to get hurt. So that also kind of brings up a scenario then when you're doing training in, a conference room or at the job site in a trailer and stuff like that. How do you train on the content and the process and then do some brainstorming for different scenarios? how do you get people to think outside the box and realize when they need to think outside the box?
Um, the outside the box is kind of I try to push that as a one-off. Like we try to stay within the box whenever possible. It's when the job is it doesn't fit.
Yeah.
But as far as training, uh, I actually like to take the training to the job site because that's where it's going to be implemented.
Mhm.
So I'll put out scenarios and ask for people to volunteer, like, okay, what's a solution to that? And
Mhm.
then we can kind of flip that around, look at it, and say, okay, well, what about this? I don't like what ifing everything to death, but I kind of sometimes act like a fifth grader and be like, well,
Yeah.
why? Why?
Yeah.
Why? What if? What if? What if?
Yeah. Right. Oh,
And
I
get
love
people
it.
to
Yeah.
start digging backwards.
I absolutely love that uh, concept because so many times, like people do think, okay, I read the PDF, it had the 10 steps on it to everybody. Everybody sign here, check the box, and you're off and running. And when we talk to a lot of people about, okay, you need to make sure people got the core baseline information, and then you need to lead a conversation or you need to ask questions. And we'll get a lot of people that say, well, I'm a good doer. I'm a good safety manager. I'm good about walking people through the information. I'm not a trainer. I'm not a presenter. But what I think our listeners should take away from what you just said today is you go over the material and then you go through, you're not what ifing everything to death, but you're asking, well, here's a scenario. What would we do in this situation? And you're really getting the input and ideas from your team. But as the safety leader, you're also getting a good understanding of, are people thinking in the right direction? So when people aren't thinking in the right direction, how do you go about reeling them back in?
Good question. So when we have somebody that's going in the opposite direction or not the right direction,
Yeah,
um,
because you don't want to just like shut them down so they don't
yeah,
ever communicate again, right? You don't want to just jump in and say, dumb idea, Bob, right? You want to make sure that they know they were heard. But yet we have to corral them back to that might be an idea. However, it falls out of the bounds of X, Y, and Z kind of a thing, right?
yeah. Actually, I think that's a really, really good point. I tend to try to look at everybody that's out there as they've all got their own battle, they've all got their own struggle that they're dealing with that I may know nothing about, but
Mhm.
um, and they have their own varying levels of experience and understanding. So instead of being like, hey, no, that's a dumb idea, I'm like, well, interesting. What's another approach? And I will ask for more feedback or more input. And if I don't get anything, then I'm like, okay, well, so that is, I could understand how we'd get there. However, that's not where we're actually supposed to be. And I'll pull us back in. I'll ask, actually, what I found really, really helpful is I'll ask some of the junior, like really, really new individuals, like, okay, this is your first day, your first time experiencing this. What are your thoughts? Like, what is keeping you or what's concerning you right now? What could go wrong? And sometimes, they barely scratch the surface. And then I'll just say, okay, now I'll find somebody who's been in for a little while and be like, okay, what are we missing? And then I'll go look for the senior, you know, we call it the gray hair. I've got plenty myself now, but like, okay, and what have you seen in this situation? And just kind of try to engage. I have a really cool the Mill Plane is a pretty amazing company. They give
Mhm.
me stacks of like $5 gift cards, and I will
Oh,
toss
nice.
those. It's probably not the safest thing to do, but I'll toss them at people. Be like, "Hey, I love that question. Thank you. Thank you for engaging."
Well,
Or
they're gonna stay awake and hopefully catch
exactly.
one, right? Pay attention, right? Yeah. I
Yep.
think one of the things that I just like that you said, that I wanna make sure listeners really zeroed in on is that Steve does not I don't wanna put words in your mouth, but this is what I heard. You don't look at the, 5, 10 people standing in front of you during that toolbox talk or that on-site safety training as all equal in the same respect of amount of time on the job. what I heard you say was you recognize that there's new hires there. You recognize that there's folks that have been there long enough to be subject matter experts, and that you encourage dialogue from each. So many times I'll talk to safety managers and they'll be like, "Yeah, we've got guys rolling their eyes. They've been on the job for 30 years and they're like, "Yeah, I've heard this a million times." But it sets a tone really for the new hires who are sitting there hungry to hear, well, how do I stay safe? I don't want to get hurt. And I don't know exactly what all the steps are. So it sounds like you give those new hires a voice in those meetings. And tell me a little bit about that.
Absolutely. So one of the things that I'll do is before we start out, uh, I kind of go through what our objective is, and I'll say, hey, I understand that, some of you have gone through this training multiple times. I understand some of you have never heard any of this before, or maybe, you've heard little bits of here and there. But what we're going to do is we're going to start a foundation. So I want us all speaking the same language with the same understanding, and we're going to build off of that. So if you've heard this before, if you hear me say anything that makes you scratch your head or doesn't really resonate, cool. Put that in your pocket and let's talk about that in a minute. Um, if you've gone through this training 24 times, look at it with a different lens and see what is it that I can get out of this time? What is it that I can actually take from this and give to my tool partner? So build that foundation saying, yep, some of this might feel very elementary, like you're going backwards in time. Understand that we're all trying to speak the same language.
Yep. Yep. And also, like, I gotta believe there's times where it's really important to remind people that you're working on this project as a team, and the proverbial thing of you're only as good as your weakest link, right? And if you got a new
Absolutely.
hire guy there who doesn't understand as much as the guy who's been there for 20 years, as the 20-year guy, I want to make sure the new hire knows what he's doing so he doesn't cause something to go south, if you will, which ends up hurting, more people than just the new hire. So literally, it's about sharing knowledge and working across that. I really do like this idea of making it a safe place, and making safe place meaning like
Yeah.
encouraging the new hire to speak up, because a lot of times, you've got these groups standing around, and the new hire doesn't want to really emphasize how much they don't know just yet. So they're embarrassed to ask a question, or maybe there's a language difference and they don't know exactly how to answer the question. But by the safety leader prompting and directing open-ended clarifying question to different people of different skill sets and or perhaps different cultural backgrounds and language backgrounds, really opens that door to get that dialogue going. Now, it sounds like you do like to do a lot of stuff on site at the job site. Now, I don't know how many different job sites you have, but does that present a challenge to you? How many different places you can be in one time?
It does. It really does. We, at any given point, we probably have 15 different job sites, and they
Mhm.
range from, 2 hours away out at the coast. We've been working just south of Canada, a 4 hour drive. We've got jobs in Spokane and Idaho, and um, jobs all over Oregon and Vancouver.
Mhm.
So it does create a bit of a challenge. But honestly, I look at it as an opportunity for, you know, I like solving problems. That's just kind of
Mhm.
in my nature.
Mhm.
Um, and it also gives me the opportunity for a lot of audiobooks and increasing my learning while I'm
Yep.
driving from one job site to the next.
Yep. And so
Um,
what's your structure on each of the job sites? Do you have a go-to person that, so when you're not there, they're the safety mentor or the go-to safety uh, supervisor on the job site for each job that you have? Is that kind of the structure?
yeah, so we have a general foreman and a foreman expectation, right? So
Mhm.
you are going to have this level of training and understanding, and if need be, we can send people out to help augment that. But all of our foremen have, at a minimum, OSHA 30 training. which I know is
Okay.
kind of as a base level, but at least it gives them the initial understanding of what right might need to look like. And then when it starts to get above their head, that's when they reach out and make a call.
Consult with you and others to make sure that they've got everything aligned properly. I'm a big fan of in-person training, hands-on training,
Absolutely.
and the dialogues that you can have with people during that training session. But the real challenges come to place when we can't, as safety professionals, be everywhere all the time and see what's going on. So, do you
Right.
have an approach that kind of it looks like a hybrid approach where maybe people are doing training online or watching videos or training courses that they have to work through over a period of time in conjunction with the on-site training?
I have a kind of a couple of different options that I can send people. I've got a spreadsheet. I'm a little old school on that as far as like, hey, if you're looking into this situation, we do a lot of self-performing for trenching. We do end up crawling into vaults. I don't personally want people going into that unless I have a really warm fuzzy that they understand what they're getting into and they understand what right looks like.
Mhm.
Um, Not only for the compliance violation side of it, but just for the safety side of it, right? Like a lot of people don't understand that the risks in a vault are unseen, right? Like
Mhm.
you can't see the atmosphere that it
Right.
may take you out, and then it's going to take out several other people as well as they come try to get you. So I do have some resources. We have initiated a LMS, a learning management system. I basically during COVID, I went through and it's like, well, we can't do a whole lot of in-person training, so I scoured the webs and looked for the best training that I thought was, all inclusive. And I put a list together, and then we've also been regularly building it. And then I've got, 811 has a really good dig safe program that there's, I believe that you need, the content. And then I need a way to understand that you actually got that content. So you have to be tested on it.
Right.
And there's some good systems out there that says, yep, this person actually took it and they passed the test. They got 100%, or maybe they got 70%. Okay, so that's going to trigger me. They're probably safe enough to just get started, but I'm going to go out there and just kind of to tap on some of these little spots that may be confusing.
Right. Absolutely. I think so many organizations that we talk to, and many of our guests here that have been on Compliance and Motion really are firm believers in this hybrid approach where you do leverage that time you have with people when you're there with them in person, but then realize that there's supplemental education and training and things like that that need to happen through an online platform that people can work through on demand on their own. But at the end of the day, it's the job of a safety um, professional to understand that it's the two things together. I believe this, that it's really the two things together that create that experience level, that foundation of what is right and the best way to get the job done safely as a refreshed and new skill set that somebody can run forward with. You're never going to replace the dialogue that an individual worker has
Yep.
with their supervisor and the safety manager, because those are the nuances where you pick up on things. And you're picking up on things like body language. Someone might be standing there, nodding like they understand everything that you're saying, but yourself, as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, you can tell by their body language that they're not really as engaged as I thought they were. And so, do you have a technique if you can spot that, like, hey, I feel like I'm getting a lot of head nods, but I don't feel like this is really sinking in when I'm talking to people about the training?
That's a really good question. We've built, this is kind of a little bit of a tangent, but it ties in. We've built uh, kind of a communication framework. My boss asked me, he's like, well, the military communicates across large areas. So what do you guys do? And there's a couple things that I like to try to keep, the bluff, bottom line up front. Like this is what we're focused on. The KISS principle, keep it super
Good.
simple. Um, And then the fact that communication is really actually only about 7% of the words that we speak. There's about 55% that's your body language and all of that. Then there's, the rest is tone, pace, volume. So when I see somebody that is trying to just kind of nod through it, and I can kind of tell by the look in their eyes that it's not really sinking in, or they don't get it. um, I think this kind of ties back to what you were talking about earlier about the training. Is there are people, I mean, we all fit into this category of, some of us, we don't know what we don't know. So the new guys on the job, um, the new hires, they don't understand how much that they don't know. It's this huge open void there. And then the people that have been around for a while, what I've really been honing in is they don't remember what it's like to not know. You ask me to wire up a three-way
Right.
switch, I can do
Yeah.
that in my sleep. This guy, if I hand him a three-way switch, he has no idea. So engaging that, and then kind of, if I get that look you were talking about, that just like they don't get it, it's not sinking in, I will come at it from another direction. And I've got 5 kids, so I get really good practice on asking
Multiple
questions.
directions.
Yeah, and it's just like, okay, I know this one will understand it if I come this direction, and that, this one, it will fly right over their head. So I got to come at it at this direction. So I don't look at the field as my children, but I do look at them as my family, and like, okay, each one of them's a little tiny bit different, and they need a little tiny
Absolutely.
bit different approach.
Right. Absolutely. And I think that that's such a great takeaway for our listeners today is not only, think about where we started in the conversation, where Steve is looking at the folks in front of him and realizing some are brand new hires and some are seasoned, professionals, right? They know everything inside and out, but using a technique to make it a safe place for a new hire to stand up and ask questions, and or through Steve's technique, asking a direct question to a new hire as an open-ended one to get them talking, to really assess that. But then there's another component that we've just introduced, and that is recognizing the body language from people as to whether or not they're really absorbing it. And what I really like what you did, Steve, was you really pointed out not all people connect with the same message. Sometimes people, there's different types of learners out there. There's different types of thinkers out there. Some people are very visual. They can just look at a picture and they can do it exactly right the next time.
Got it.
Uh,
Yep.
got it. Other people will look at the picture and say, well, that's great, but give me the 10 steps. I need them written down in front of me. Step one, step two, step three, right? And then there's other people that will basically are saying that that's all fine, but until I do it myself, hands on with you mentoring me, I'm not
Yep.
really going to be able to internalize it. So it's that job as the safety manager. If your job wasn't complicated enough already and enough on your plate, you have to be able to recognize these cues. Who's in your audience and what is their learning style, right? Now,
Absolutely.
do you find any major gaps or differences between the younger generations and the more seasoned generations, if you will, in how you need to communicate to them?
Absolutely. Um, the younger generation is more on the feels. Like they want to resonate. They want to actually have uh, purpose and connection. Whereas, some of us, the more seasoned individuals, it's like, just give me my task and let me hit it. Like, let me go
Yeah.
after this and get it done. I don't really care about all the feels, right? Like, I leave those at the door. I'm here to work. And then the younger generation uh, internalizes a lot. I would say they're they're looking at how they feel, how it impacts them, how it impacts those around them, and it's kind of a cool spot to be, to try to mesh both of those, because I think there needs to be, or not needs to be, I think that it would be beneficial if we could take some of that feel and rub it off on some of the seniors, that have been there for a while, And then also if we could take some of that, just get after it and get it done and rub that off on some of the younger ones. So that's why I really enjoy uh, doing training with all level that's there, because we all have something we can learn from the others.
Absolutely. I see that happen all the time and across the generations. It's like, how do I take the best of what people bring to the table and combine it together? It's kind of like your safety approach. When the situation dictates it and I can't follow the steps exactly, I need to pull from other safety protocols to make the best possible scenario out of it. It's the same thing for when you're looking at your workers. I've got people that bring certain strengths to the table uh, based upon their experience and their generation that they're from. And I need to figure out how to get the best of those different types of individuals all in the same place to produce a job. I also see a bigger difference sometimes in generational work where um, it's about get the task done and I'm doing what's in front of me and I'm doing it, you know, exactly how it needs to be done because I've done it a million times. Whereas a younger generation wants to know how the task fits into the bigger picture
Yeah.
and what it's going to look like when it's done, right? And kind of like we're in the safety compliance space. We develop a software application for delivering safety training and tracking and monitoring safety compliance. So we have a team of technical people that work here at Ving. The thing that we don't look at ourselves as writing code. We look at ourselves as we're creating a vehicle that delivers safety training to people so they can stay safe on the job. The end result is a worker gets to go home in the same condition that they came to work today. It's very similar whether you're an electrician, a plumber, a carpenter, a roofer, or whatever. If you're focused on just the shingle, you might be missing the big picture. If you're
Mm.
putting a new roof on, you're going to help keep somebody warm for the night. And there's a family inside that loves having that roof on top. If you're working on an electrical job, whether it's commercial or residential, but in this case, residential, and you're building a home and putting all the wiring in and making sure that all the air conditioning and the heat and all this stuff is going to work as planned, it's not just about the task that you performed in front of you. It's about the task that you're creating an environment for somebody to live in and raise a family. And that's part of the big picture. If we can all internalize that, then we're going to bring the best of what we have to the table to deliver that at the end of the day. So do you spend time talking to your team about that big picture and how their job today fits in to the company's, quality of delivery and expectations on timing of delivery and the end result of how it's going to affect people?
I personally don't spend a whole lot of time on that. However, one of the things that I love about Millplane is we do a quarterly company-wide meeting. It's not mandatory. We
Mm.
provide lunch for everybody. If you want to join, join. If you don't, then your half-hour lunch is over and you go back to work. But I'd say, from my understanding, it's about 100% attendance. But the VP of the company goes through and highlights each one of the jobs that we've got going on across Oregon, Washington, Idaho, and basically talks about the impact to society. Like, hey, we're doing the 217 corridor, which is traffic safety. We're doing ped lights. We're doing this, that, and it's for public safety. We're doing um, an industrial job over here, and here's how the job's going, and here's what we're doing. So he does a across the board the impact, and then kind of like the pipeline. Hey, where we go from here? So the
Mhm.
VP and the leadership of Millplane does a really good job of trying to, at least once a quarter, bring everybody together and say, hey, here's where we are, here's where we're going, and here's what we're doing and why we're doing it.
That's fantastic. I think, any safety program or any corporation that's really successful in what they do, like yours, it starts with the leadership, but it
Yeah.
also finishes with ownership of the employee in the field. I see where we're headed, and my role in getting us there, I own it, I'm accountable for it, and I'm responsible for it. But if we don't show the workers, the people out there in the field, what the big picture looks like, and showcasing some of the jobs that people can take pride in. Hey, I worked on that job. I did those things. And they can feel good about themselves. They can also share it with with their family and friends, like when they're driving down the highway and yeah, that's our project there. I was working on that for about, a year doing, whatever it was. And really take a big sense of pride in it. So that leadership involvement is absolutely critical, and I'm sure it just flows right into the safety culture as well. Um, Now you mentioned about the gift cards, the $5 cards and stuff like that. That's kind of like your core incentive for people, to pay attention during thing. Do you also have other safety incentive programs that have been put in place?
Um, we do. I want to wrap back around to the
Sure.
what you were
Yeah.
talking about real quick. One of the things that I've been doing a lot lately over the last year, I've started implementing when I do my training. I'll go hit the job site for lockout, tagout, and energized electric work, right? And it's kind of cool because as we go through the project, we're taking pictures. The field team is taking pictures. So I actually will sprinkle in some of the pictures of here's the start out, here's this bare piece of earth, and this is this project coming up and out. And then I will ask the project manager and the general foreman and the foreman, like, hey, get pictures of your crew. And I'll throw those in there. And it seems like I'm getting a lot of really good interaction because people are,
Oh yeah.
so some of them are a little bit hilarious, comical. You got a guy with a gorilla mask on, or somebody who's sitting over there looking a little confused. So, but it's like, hey, I know that guy. Oh, hey, that's me. That's me. So it's kind of pulling them in. But back to your safety incentives. We've tried several different things. I was super excited about a program. I kind of built teams and had a competition going and said, okay, if you safety observations, if you can see things good, bad, or indifferent, right? Like there's an open hole right here. That's a fall hazard. Snap a picture of it, notify somebody, we get it fixed, and you get, depending on the risk or the hazard, you're going to get so many points, and that goes towards your team. And we were
Yeah.
kind of doing a competition for a while. It engaged if you see something, say something.
Mhm.
And then
Mhm.
I was also doing when you see somebody doing something well, like grab that, notify, take a picture of it, and let's celebrate that. Because the one thing I don't want is a team full of people running around trying to sharpshoot people and be like, hey, like, we can do better than that. We can actually, if we see something that's immediate danger, right? Like, yeah, we're going to fix it right now. But it was like, well, they probably should be doing this to be more inside of that box because right now, you know, only one foot's in the box. Let's put both feet in
Yeah.
there because we can't.
Yep. Yep. I
So
hear you. And one of the operative words that I heard you say about the safety incentive program was that your team gets points.
yeah,
And I'm sure there's individual accolades that get delivered from time to time that are also very important, but so many safety and programs that I stumble across are very individually oriented. Like because you did these things, you get to participate in that, or you can go to a website and pick out a prize or whatever it is with the points that you've earned. Um, but when you talk about a unit, a team, looking out for each other on the job site and rewarding them together, really amplifies the power of an empowerment of those people working together. It also gives them this common connection, that
yeah.
they're working together. They're working together to keep the job site safe. Very interesting stuff. This has been a great conversation, Steve. I greatly appreciate it. We're starting to run out of time here. So as we're turning the corner and wrapping things up, anything top of mind that you didn't get to share with us today that I know we covered a lot of ground, but I wanted to give you an opportunity to throw something else out there before I wrap you up.
I think the thing that's been on my mind and my heart lately is in our industry, in the construction industry, we are second. as far as the worst for suicide rate. And the mental health, the way I've liked to try to frame it is the mental fitness, right? Like you got physical fitness, you've got mental fitness, you've got emotional fitness, right? Like there's health that's involved with that. And as an industry, I really feel like we need to rip that stigmatism off and as leaders be vulnerable and be like, hey, you know what? I I've been in counseling. I've got these things, these hard things that happened. It's pretty easy for me because, combat veteran, couple overseas deployments as a medevac pilot. Um, I didn't think that I had PTSD until my mom pointed out. She's like, when I came back from Iraq in '03, she's like, I want my son back. I'm like, look, mom, I'm right here. No, she goes, no, no, no. I want my happy-go-lucky son back. So I
Yeah.
went and saw a professionalist, and she's like, oh, yeah, the neuroplasticity, flight or flight, combat, um, your brain's changed. I'm like, cool, changed, got it. Moving on, I'm going to change it back. Well, a lot of us have things, everybody on your job site is fighting a battle that you may know nothing about. So, what I'm encouraging everybody that's listening to your podcast, everybody that's on my team, everybody that I run into is let's lean into that. Let's lean into the fact that we are all human beings and one of my favorite sayings is we're human beings, not human doings, right? So let's
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
focus on that. Like we do have a job to do. I can't let that slide, right? Like we still need to do these things, but you need to be okay with not being okay. And
Mhm.
you need to be okay with somebody on your team checking in and being like, whoa, um, this is rough because it ties directly into safety with when there's things going on at home that maybe nobody knows anything about except for that person experiencing it. They're distracted. Their head's not in the game. And
Mhm.
that's when really, really bad accidents happened.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad that you pointed this out because it would have been something that we skipped over in our discussion today that really needed to be brought to the forefront. And for the listeners out there, I just want to point out a common thread of all the podcast guests that I've had and talked to. Every single one of them at some point or another in the discussion calls this out as remember you're working with people, have empathy and
Mm,
understanding for what they might be going through outside of the job. And the culture that we're in today really lends itself to talking about this stuff and dealing with this stuff. The days of just bury it and don't bring it to the work,
they're not.
those are gone. People bring that to work. It is what it is. And I got to tell you that a lot of people will say things like our guys don't want to talk about this stuff, they don't want to bring it. I will tell you from personal experience and going to workshops and being in places where I thought that was going to be the case, and the speaker was somebody that was going to help us bring these to the surface as a point of discussion. I couldn't believe how much participation
Mhm.
was in that workshop from the people in the seats. It was fantastic. So if you're ever thinking that people aren't ready to talk about this or need pointed in the right direction to go talk to them about it somebody with somebody else, be that person like Steve or others that step up and help them find the right path to the right path person to talk to helpfully deal with whatever they're bringing to work and walking around with day to day when they're not at work. So, Steve,
Absolutely.
I want to thank you so much for your time today. It's been a great conversation. And for our listeners and viewers out there today, that's it for another episode of Compliance in Motion. We've had a great conversation with Steve, and he's certainly shared a lot of tidbits with us that are takeaways for all of us to implement in our own companies in the weeks and months to come. So, like always, like, subscribe, and share this meaningful discussion with Steve with your colleagues so that they can tap into their community of safety professionals coast to coast as well. Take care, Steve. Have a great day.
Thanks, Tony.